Thank you, Paul, and good morning. We do indeed, as Paul mentioned, we have a lot to cover today. What a difference a week makes. I think that's probably our lead theme here this morning. And I'll start with a little bit of, again, depends on where you are in the state, but considering where we were with a very, very nice, mild and dry type of stretch of weather here that has abruptly come to an end with a more of a late fall, early winter type system here recently. Lots of changes to talk about. And I would say, start here with where we are right now. There's an upper air map on the right-hand side here. And this map looks more like, again, the early part of winter than it does for the early fall, which we can still consider where we are. This big circular feature here, this upper air trough, was not really well picked up by our forecast guidance. Was much stronger than it turned out to be much stronger than it was progged. And if this system, if this would have been maybe about 7 or 8 weeks later, we'd be looking at a huge winter storm. You have to use your imagination almost to think about snowfall totals and so forth, but it's not. It certainly resulted in a big shift and change. And I will say, looking here, it is temporary. So we do have obviously some major delays right now, but it is looking significantly different for next week. And I think we go into a warmer and drier pattern once again by as early as the beginning of, the late weekend and early next week. And I'll talk more about that in a second. I mentioned depends on where you are, because this weather system that we have right now, which with all of the wind and rain and very, very inclement type of weather is somewhat, it isn't localized, but it's across much of the lower peninsula. But the UP, just to the north and west of the circulation of this, has been, it's been cool and breezy, but dry. And I would note here that this morning on the surface weather map here, the numbers in the upper left-hand corner for all these little station sites, these are the air temperatures. And we had the first freezing temperatures of the fall reported here this morning, actually right now, as we speak, across western upper Michigan. You can see this is here right along the Wisconsin-Michigan border in interior western lower. And it turns out that's fairly close to the normal. You can also see as you go south and east from there, looking at the map, again, just terrible conditions with wind and showers and rain and cool, very, very, again, uncomfortable type of weather to be out and about in. But it did clear off and calm down certainly in the western and central upper peninsula. And it was that also the same to the north, to the west of that in Wisconsin and Minnesota. So there were frost advisories actually overnight. National Weather Service issued. I mentioned that this first freezing temperature comes fairly close to normal in maybe a little bit a couple of days late, but these are some maps that depict when the middle one here is the median of the 50th percent. That's the normal. It's using the old normals period, which is 81 through 2010. We should have some new numbers on this in the not too distant future. But first freezing temperatures of the fall climatologically occur as early as some cases even very late August, early September in interior areas of upper, and a couple spots up in the northern lower, but interior away from the lakes. And then for most of the state, this date comes in October, and it comes as late as actually almost the end of October, the very beginning of November here in the southwest and southeast corners of the state, right along Lakes Michigan and in Erie, to give you an idea in a range. So it's quite a bit, and the lakes make a huge difference here this time of the year, of course. And so the farther interior away from the lakes you are, typically the earlier this date comes. But we are in that period, and I will say again, I mentioned this at the beginning, as there are after today, there really are no signs or hints of any widespread frost or freezing temperatures for a while. So if you were wondering or worried about the growing season, we've got at least another week and a half, maybe longer than that, given the medium range forecast guidance. And I'll get to that shortly. In the last week here, it was a warmer than normal week, as I mentioned here. On the left-hand side here, you can see average temperatures ranging from 3 or 4 to as much as 7 degrees Fahrenheit above normal. Very, very favorable conditions for rapid dry down and maturation, early senescence, you name it, for all of our annual crops. All of those it was really pretty favorable weather, and actually doing outdoor fieldwork activities. Precipitation, this only goes through 8 o'clock yesterday morning, and we had a lot of precipitation across portions of lower Michigan, especially the southeastern lower. This is the current weather system that we're dealing with. We've had, and since we've looked at some numbers from EnviroWeather and from radar estimates, a wide swath of 2 to 4 inches of rainfall has fallen here over just the last 48 hours. Again, primarily across about the southeastern third or so of lower Michigan, but you can also see there northwestern lower had more than an inch. It was a fairly wet week, with the exception of portions of the upper peninsula where there was less than half an inch, and a little bit more to come. But the good news is that the weather system we have now will be finally coming to an end here today. Soil moisture, it really depends on where you are in the state, but it ranges from drier than normal across portions of upper Michigan, and recently here drier across the southwestern lower. Once again, that area was missed by some of the rainfall over the last few weeks. It's raining there now, and it's not a huge issue at this time of the year. But again, thinking about winter wheat planting and getting some moisture up in the topsoil, the rain that's falling there now probably will be very, very beneficial, and we'll be back hopefully dry enough to get moving and working again here by early next week. It's still above normal across the green here, across much of northern lower Michigan, where it's been wetter than normal for a long time. One statistic, and I won't show it here, but over the last three months, we've had in some cases more than 20 inches of rainfall. Which is more than 10 inches above normal, so 200% of normal rainfall over the last 3 months here, especially again across the southeastern lower. In terms of anomaly, that's about the wettest portion of the state. You can see that here in that dark blue color, way beyond the soil moisture, beyond what we typically see at this time of the year. Degree day totals, as I've mentioned, we've had a healthy surplus for most of the year, and with the warmer than normal temperatures, that continues. The surpluses as of the 21st here through a couple days ago range from about 50 units across interior portions of upper Michigan to more than 300 base 50 units here across portions of southern lower Michigan. So very, very healthy degree day surpluses. Should be no problem with most crops that had normal planting dates to reach maturity this year. No shortage of heat this year with those surpluses. And along those lines here, I mentioned I have a research project with Manny Singh and Matt Gammons here looking at drydown rates of corn. I just wanted to share this. So we've been out every day, and this is a sort of a special one where we're actually looking at corn drydown for individual ears on a daily basis, which is really getting down in the weeds for we all know there's striking variability with these. And what you see down here in the bottom is actually looking at one of the plots where these are 4 separate ears that we monitor every day. In situ, we have a special sensor that looks at this, and with the husk and so forth, it has to be temporarily taken and put back. But we've had, with the very, very warm and dry weather, this is an early season cultivar, an 89-day relative maturity group that was planted on the 11th of May, and we started monitoring on the 3rd of September. I just wanted to share this. It's really dried out quickly. These are mean temperatures up here at the top. It's been warmer than normal, especially over the last couple of weeks, but you can see for this particular cultivar and this particular treatment combination, 15 to 20% drops in moisture here from the mid and upper 30s here at the early part of September now to the upper teens. So it's really, really went quickly, more than it typically does. And again, we can thank the very, very mild and dry conditions. Down at the bottom, if you're interested, these are precipitation totals here at East Lansing, and you can see the temporary blips. The sensor that we have, it looks at more than just the grain. It's actually looks at the volume, so you do a little bit of moisture temporarily added when we get the rainfall, but you can see that here, especially for this rainfall event on the 14th and 15th, but it quickly reverts back down, especially if it dries out. We're looking at it right now with this extended wet period to see how much water is actually in the system. But again, I think the bottom line is, for many people, the warm, dry weather has been very, very good for getting field dry down rates below what they might be this time of the year. Looking at the forecast here, the weather system that's bringing all the terrible weather across lower Michigan, centered really over the Detroit area this morning. It's not moving anywhere quickly, but the other better news is it's weakening after rapidly strengthening yesterday, which is why we have all the wind with this out of the north and northwest. It's still going to be For the lower peninsula, it's going to be a really terrible day. I don't want to, I guess, hold any punches here with that, the label, but windy with showers. Down the lower left-hand side here, you can see this system actually, because of that cutoff feature, the upper air feature I showed you, actually has migrated back to the northwest, which is a little unusual for us, but most of the precipitation with this now is over the western half of, or southwestern portion of lower Michigan, and it will probably stay there for most of the day. I think we've seen the heaviest precipitation in southeastern lower Michigan is probably over. We will still see some showers there. The satellite, you can see here, the wraparound is very, very well-defined cyclonic or counterclockwise rotation. Again, this is a cold season weather system. This is not a summer, something we typically see in the summer. And if it were later in the year, we would be talking a lot about snow removal and really bad conditions because it is a cold season system. It will gradually come to an end. The precipitation, the threat of precip here later today, this evening from south to north as the system slowly makes its way to the north and finally dissipates and weakens and moves out of the state. But it's only a temporary break. Here's the weather map for tomorrow. You can see what's left of the system here up over Ontario. Again, a few lingering showers tomorrow morning in the far northeastern part of the state. Nothing serious. But the next weather system is waiting in the wings off here. It's a frontal boundary, another cold frontal boundary, and it's another upper air wave. Again, typical of the cold season that's approaching. The good news is it's not going to bottom out and cut off like this current system did for a couple of days in camp here. It's going to move through quickly. That'll be primarily late on the day on Friday. So we'll see showers and a couple thunder showers redevelop from west to east across the state on late in the day, afternoon Friday evening, and overnight into early Saturday. And then here is the weather map for Saturday morning. You can see the frontal boundary making its way south and eastward out of southeastern lower Michigan. And so we'll see a quick end from the showers. And we will see probably quarter to half inch amounts in most areas here with the precipitation on Saturday. That comes on top of at least a quarter to half an inch additional today for some spots. So again, some western parts of the state and that southwest portion could see it maybe an inch here over the next couple of days. But as I've got on the left-hand side here, already had a request for this for the night game here coming up on Saturday evening with Nebraska. We're going to dodge the bullets here, and all the precipitation should be over. And so officially looking pretty much at a partly cloudy, breezy conditions after the cold front has moved through. With temperatures during the day will be nice, mid-60s probably for highs, and then falling into the upper 50s by game time during the evening. So a typical fall, but great conditions, hopefully, and but a little bit of the southwest breeze, maybe some gusts up around 20 miles per hour. So if you're on that northeastern part of the eastern part of the stadium, it may be a little bit chilly. You might want to bring certainly some layers to have for the game, but hopefully some good weather to stomp some you-know-what for our Cornhusker visitors. And then precipitation totals here looking for the upcoming week. You can see the bullseye down across southwestern lower Michigan. Again, the vast majority of this, almost all of this, is today, and then what's expected overnight Friday into early Saturday. And again, most areas they're half to 1 inch with sort of equally between today and then overnight Friday, less as you go north and east from there, and the western upper peninsula also expected to be drier. So big changes though coming here by late in the weekend. This is the medium range, and note the Climate Prediction Center has a new format for our extended outlooks, the medium range and the long lead outlooks. You can see new color. It's should be a little bit easier to see, but very, very clear message here. Both the 6 to 10 and 8 to 14 day outlooks call for redevelopment. After this next weather system moves through late Friday, early Saturday, we pop a ridge up once again over North America, right over the Midwest. That means one thing, and it's warm and dry. And that is the major theme we've got beginning on Sunday and then probably continuing for a good chunk of the work week next week, back to probably above normal temperatures and also drier than normal. That's the very, very clear and consistent message in medium range for next week. But the long lead beyond that, we just had a new ensemble issued a week ago, last Thursday, for October, which is on the top here, and then the October through December periods. It is still calling for a normal to above normal mean temperatures. That's been consistent. But what's different, it's now calling for also for near to above normal precipitation totals. Something we'll have to keep an eye on here for this time of the year. That's a little bit new. And that especially for the October here, the wetter than normal, that's always could be a challenge here, at least for harvest activities, something we'll keep an eye on. Most of that is because of a numerical model guidance is where that signal's coming from. Still expecting here, looking beyond that, the development of at least a weak La Nina event out in the equatorial Pacific. This line here with cooler than normal temperatures down in the Pacific. This is the official forecast. It's projected to reach its peak intensity here in the late fall and early winter, actually here just in the short-term future. And the probability of La Nina, again, up above 75 to about 80% is what the official probabilities are. And with La Nina, most of the weather impacts would be typically in the mid to late winter here. Season looking beyond this, and that's the last thing I have here. But we do have until then for the late fall and early winter. You can see that Michigan's right sort of on the top of an area of what's projected to be a little bit warmer than normal. This goes from the November through January period here on the upper left, all the way out into next year. Again, this is the 1 year out, or 9 months out anyway. And again, this is a little bit new, the warmer than normal mean temperatures. The precipitation, though, is the typical La Nina signature, or what's associated with La Nina events in the winter. And you can see that does call for above normal precipitation totals. And so another way of looking at this too, another piece of this, we typically see more often than not above normal snowfall totals during La Nina winters. Again, especially middle to latter part, even into the early spring. But one last thing about this, there is a correlation with the strength of the La Nina event. Stronger events are more likely to have these types of anomalies. Weaker events, less so. And this one is only projected right now to be a weak event. So just like last year, we had a weak La Nina, and we did not see typical or conditions typical of La Nina. So there might be a repeat performance for that. We'll see. But that's the latest here in terms of the long lead. So I've got a lot on here, but the horrible weather across much of lower Michigan coming to an end here from south to north, but it's a temporary end. And while it will be sunny actually tomorrow for at least the early part of the day in many spots, will turn quickly as that next weather system approaches from northwest to southeast across the state, with another chance for showers and thunder showers tomorrow evening, but it will end by Saturday. And then after that, in late Saturday into Sunday, we're looking at clearing and warmer. That's the clear trend there, warmer and drier into next week. And as you just saw, long lead, still warmer than normal, but maybe a little wetter here for portions of the upcoming fall. That's something to keep in mind with it. And we always do at this time of the year, using time as wisely as possible. But while the warm temperatures are probably a good positive thing for evaporation and keeping things going, above normal precip is always a challenge. And I will stop there and say thank you for attention, the questions, and the discussion here over the season. And we'll look forward to the off season and seeing you again next spring.